Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 6, Communion through Meditation. Raise your lower self by your higher self. Meditate. Arjuna's original plan was to escape from the battlefield and live a sannyasi life. But the Lord clarifies that a truly selfless worker alone is the greatest sannyasi. The inert mind has to be first stirred into intense activity, and after that it has to be trained. And this chapter deals with the technique of that training and cultivation of the mind, which should be done only after it has been first stirred into intense activity. Doing actions, that is yoga, and doing them in a detached way, that is sannyasa, are the two sides of the spiritual coin. Sannyasa is the state reached through yoga, the practice. I repeat, sannyasa is the state reached through yoga, the practice. Thus, rituals or religious practices do have an initial place in spiritual development, but they are only a means and not the ultimate goal. When a man ceases to have any attachment for all the objects of the senses and for actions also, and renounces all thoughts of the world, he becomes a yogi. We should raise our lower self, consisting of our body, senses, and mind, by our higher self, consisting of the Atman or divine spirit or consciousness or awareness or whatever you may call it, which is present in each one of us. It should be remembered, we have two selves, the lower self and the higher self. Unfortunately, we all associate ourselves only with our lower self, consisting of our body, senses, and mind, forgetting that it is the higher self which is the man behind the show. Okay. The wandering, wavering, sensuous mind, which is the sole cause of the lower satanic self in us, should, under the guidance of the intellect, which is the equipment for the higher self to manifest, it should, under the guidance of the intellect, be disciplined and made to attune with the nobler divine self in us. So the mind has to be guided by the intellect. Such a serene, self-controlled individual who constantly contemplates on his true self becomes an unshakable yogin. And to him, pleasure and pain, honor and dishonor, heat and cold, friends and foes are all equal. And this highest goal can be reached only by meditation, which is a spiritual communion. Now, how to practice meditation? The Bhagavad Gita gives a few points for this. First, sit in solitude, withdraw from mental and physical preoccupations, retire to a quiet corner of the house, seat yourself comfortably in a clean place on a seat that is neither too high nor too low. Second, self-controlled, that is body and mind controlled, freeing oneself from the eagerness to possess or hoard. Make the mind one-pointed, subduing mental imaginations and activities of the sense organs and contemplating on the ultimate self. Sit in an erect posture, that is head, neck and the vertebral column should be erect and perpendicular to the seat, holding the body firmly and at the same time relaxed. Eyes can be half closed, gazing at the tip of the nose or the space between the eyebrows. But do this carefully. You can also keep your eyes fully closed. Always be moderate in eating and sleeping habits and firm in the vow of brahmacharya, that is, all sense impulses. Keep the mind serene, fearless and balanced. And thus keeping the body and mind, fix the concentration on the Atman, the Brahman, your higher self. This has to be practiced tirelessly with determination under the guidance of a steadfast intellect. Thoughts will come. The intellect should be used to curb them and bring the mind back to abide in the higher self. Of course, the mind is fickle. It is like a monkey. It is turbulent and unyielding. But the Lord assures that it can be brought under control with religious faith and fervor and persistence, of course. A true yogin, a man of spiritual insight, can easily experience the infinite bliss of contact with the Brahman and as soon sees the self as residing in all beings and all beings as residing in the self. This is the promise of the Lord. Arjuna then wants to know what would happen to that person who has a firm faith but is not steadfast in his practices and hence fails to reach spiritual perfection. The Lord assures, no spiritual practice ever goes in vain. What a lovely assurance. No spiritual practice ever goes in vain. The fallen yogi goes to the spheres of righteousness after death and after the specified time is reborn in this world in such an environment that is pure, wise and spiritual families which will be conducive to his own spiritual growth. He will regain the spiritual discernment of his previous birth and strive harder for that perfection. Thus, this is a sure path of peace leading to bliss and attaining moksha or liberation. The yogi then attains that quietude of mind, becomes steadfast and never moves from reality and reaches that ultimate state free from feeling any pain, sorrow or other agitations of a mind. He would reach a permanent transcendental bliss. Thus ends the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita entitled Communion Through Meditation. Hari Om Tat Sat.